Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me podcast, the award-winning Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. I'm excited because season 8 has been really special. I've had some of my favorite people in the studio with me and giving them a chance to help me reflect on my leadership journey by passing the mic to them and allowing them to ask questions that they want to ask to get at things that they'd like to know about my leadership and things that I've done, experienced, not done, why I've done it, how I've done it. And so it's just been really great. And you're in store for a real treat today because today's episode is nothing less than something that's going to be spectacular as well. I have a young lady in our studio named Jacquesha Hunt. She's also known around these parts as Sugar. Took me a while to kind of understand it when she was a kid. Sugar, not sugar. Don't you dare say sugar. It's Sugar. And she is in the studios. And listen, I have known Jacquesha, a.k.a. Sugar, since she was a teenager. She still works for me. She telecommutes from Texas. Her mother works for me. Her children were born to our church. This woman is an organizer. She's a Renaissance lady. She bedazzles. She does hair. She probably can pierce ears and probably has and noses and other things. She can cook. She's a caterer. She's a wedding planner. She designs funeral programs. She designed my father's program for his memorial service. She probably writes music. I'm sure she can milk cows. She does all of this kind of stuff. She's a great mom. She's an intellectual. Listen, this lady graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and had her wedding on the same day. Who does? And she's black. And she does that. And so I'm really glad that she's here. It's so interesting that in this church, I think that there are probably only two families. I'm a local pastor. Two families where the grandpa, the child, the grandchild, and the great-grandchildren have been a part of our congregation. And so her family, the Hunt family, has been one of those 4-generational families. She works really closely with my wife also. She was in our youth programs. She worked closely with my sister where she was a debutante. And and she's a part of the creative team for Black Like Me podcast. And so Jacquesha Hunt, Sugar, I want to welcome you to Black Like Me. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. Now come on up to that mic. Don't be shy. She's in here wearing a hat saying black is a blessing.
And is.
Oh, snap. I've never seen that on a hat, a pen, a button in the Bible. Black is a blessing. Well, amen.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jacquesha, listen, I'm going to give you a chance to take this mic in just a moment, which I know you won't have a problem with. But I'm really glad that that you are here. You know, you're part of the team. I got black icebreakers, so I got to ask you some, baby. I got to ask you some of these black icebreakers.
Give it to me.
Come on now. You're a young person, so you probably grew up listening to some Usher and some of his music. And in his song "Good Kisser," there's a line that is often used in the black community: "The devil is a lie." What does that mean? What does it mean when somebody says the devil is a lie?
That he's a lie, actually. It's very literal. Basically, it means don't believe what the devil says because the devil is a lie. It's so literal. Like, why would you ask me that?
Because a lot of people don't ask that.
Yeah, because I'm literal. I'm gonna take it at face value.
Yeah. So when is it used? When do you say that? Do you ever say the devil is a lie? Like, do you ever say that phrase?
Yeah.
Like, give me an example when something happened, because this is not just said in spiritual matters. Like, give me an example of when you might have said something to your children. So you remember?
No, we're gonna talk about you. So you remember you told me that you make a real snack?
Yes.
The devil is a lie. Yeah. There. Bingo. There we go. Good morning.
The devil is a lie to you because I can make a real
And
snack. I can make a real
You
snack.
can buy one at the store. Though.
Oh, the devil is a lie.
Oh,
Okay,
see?
all right.
See? You see how that worked out?
and wait.
So
and
is he
it's-
lying or
and
not?
Listen, people. It's not the fact that the devil is a liar. It's the devil is a lie. So my friend Chris Godar.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I say the devil is a lie, he says Like he can't stand it when I just say the devil is a lie. So if I say the devil is a lie, he says so it's not the devil is a liar. The devil is a lie. Oh my goodness. Do you know what cocoa butter is used for?
Yeah. To rub on my head. You okay?
And why is that, pray tell?
Because I don't have no hair. And it makes it smooth.
Wait, Jeremy, did she just take her hat off?
And I
Black is a blessing. Is bald a blessing?
It is.
So
The very best one. Y'all better tap in.
So I told y'all in for a treat. Okay, so cocoa butter is used for rubbing on your head. And why is that? Why is cocoa butter useful? Because a lot of people listening don't even know what cocoa butter is. They think it's a food.
No, it's for external use only.
It is. And you put it on what?
And for cocoa people.
So cocoa. And what do you rub it on? Like
Personally, I rub it on my skin and scars and things like that. Most importantly for me, I actually do prefer cocoa butter to go on my bald head because if I may have gotten a razor cut or something like that, it'll help to immediately, clear the blemishes and things like that. So it actually really is a great tool.
Yes.
And that's where I focus. Cocoa butter.
My wife was curling her hair, touched her forehead, was rushing for church, didn't ice it down to take the heat out of it. It's like, you got to take the heat out of it. But the next day, she went and found some of that old cocoa butter. It was in the refrigerator, so it's kind of stiff. It's in that yellow container, like a push-up. You get it through there. She rubbed it on it. There is no scar. So I'm just telling you all. And Jacquesha, can white people use cocoa butter as well?
They can use it if they want to. I don't know how effective it's going to be. It's cocoa butter.
But I think the cocoa will work on.
You think so?
Vanilla bean. Oh, are you saying they should get vanilla bean butter?
I mean, they should probably just
Try it.
I don't know.
I want my
All I'm
non-black
saying is it's called
listeners, my
cocoa
Latino,
butter.
my Asian American, Native American. I want non-black people. I want you to go buy some cocoa butter. It's not in a jar. It's got to be in that hard yellow
the beauty
tube
supply
at the
store
beauty
at the
supply.
front of the line, right there. That's
right
where you
there,
get it from.
and you kind of push it in the center like like a
push
push, like a little push up. Try it on the scar, please.
Do
write
they
us.
scar?
Yeah. What, Jeremy? Do white people scar?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're gonna see after the show.
They're all on my legs. Like
Okay, that's right, because you play rugby. Okay, so we want you to try some cocoa butter. Does it have to be fresh scars?
Yeah, it's a wrap for
So
that.
you got to go do something and get a fresh scar, and then let us know how it works.
Not go get a fresh one.
Oh my goodness! So Jacquesha, finish this sentence. Usually people will say, "Well, you gotta, you better." So finish this sentence. I ain't got to do nothing but. Oh, you haven't heard that one?
No. I want you to ask me again because my initial thought was not appropriate.
No.
You gotta.
No,
we
so
gotta
a lot of
do that
times black
one.
people, if somebody said, "Well, you got to do this, you got to do that," like old school black people my age, your mom's age would say, "I ain't got to do nothing but."
Live and die.
Oh, okay, all right. Have you heard your mom ever say this? I ain't got to do nothing but stay black.
And stay black and die.
But to say black is to live, though, isn't it?
It is.
So, like in
best
my
life.
generation, people would say, like, if they tell you, you got to lead, you got to get. I ain't got to do nothing but stay black and die.
Yep, that's it.
Oh my goodness.
That's the one. But
Now-
I was gonna say something else because we in this new age.
What
and
was you
the
gonna say in this
petty is
new
real.
age?
I'm not gonna say it.
No, this is black
No,
like me. You can say it.
I know this is black like me, but I can't. It's not
What?
gonna work.
Say it.
Nope,
You're not gonna say
I'm
it.
not gonna do it because the devil's a lie. You trying to get nope.
The devil is a. Do you? Okay, so this one may not even. This I don't know. If you don't know this one, I may not even. Jeremy might have to even edit this one out. Do you remember these? I don't know if they used this when you were in school, but there were these pro kid shoes that they're kind of pointed at the toe. And anyway, I was going to ask you what they were, if you knew what they were called. When you were a kid, did you ever refer to gym shoes as white girls?
Yeah,
What are white girls?
kids.
So you do know. Jeremy, have you ever heard of this? Jeremy has never cried in our studio before. Come on. So there is
They're
White people,
Keds.
listen. There are some shoes that black people actually call white girls. They are the
Absolutely.
Ked shoes. Only the white ones are called white girls.
Only
And
the
why?
white
And why are
ones.
they called white girls?
Because they're white. And, okay, they're white. They have a little rubbery bottom. A pale rubbery bottom at that. Like
I'm gonna get letters after this show.
Oh, for real. And they were canvas, and they was white girls, but we wore them. We did. They was like $3.
I don't even think that we're not making this up. That's why I'm having a
Google it.
Google
White
it.
girls.
Google it. White girls.
Yeah.
I don't even think people knew that. Jeremy, you had no idea that existed.
Yeah, we wore them with leggings and slouchy socks with our T-shirts tied to the side. And we typically dance right at Jiffy Stop, right down Park Street, in our white girls.
And our white girls. Wow.
You know what Jiffy Stop is? Oh, okay. You're not that. Oh, you was today years old when you need to learn that. Jiffy Stop was right there on the corner of Hughes Place and Park Street.
Oh, that's right. Right there. Okay, Jacquesha, last thing. This is so funny. What does it mean if someone is high yellow?
Okay, high yellow is a black person that's really, 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 really light. Okay, just be
Really
clear,
light
it's not a
complected.
white person that's really, 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 really white. Okay, it's a
Right.
black person
It's-
that's really, 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 really light.
Or sometimes they're also called red, like
Red bones.
red bone. Like, yeah, all right, red bone. Like my mom was called Big Red
Yeah.
when she was young. My mom was light eyes, real light skin. Girl. Usually, if you're high yellow, you know how to fight because you always get in fights for being high yellow. Somebody want to
But
do
you also
something.
bruise easy, so you're not really trying to pick a fight.
Right, because then you got
But you get picked on because you are high yellow. And
You
that's
are
why.
picked on because you got right. You might have light eyes, so you have to carry your own cocoa butter around.
That is very true.
Otherwise, your mom will be like, "Why are you bruised again? Around your neck, around your wrist." Oh my goodness, Jacquesha, this show is gonna be wild. So with that, daughter, I'm gonna pass the mic right over to you because you get a chance to be in the driver's seat. And why don't you just start a little bit by just telling people what are some of your earliest remembrances of me or us or how we met?
There are so many. Okay. But I will say that I came here when I was 15.
Here being Fountain of Life Church.
Here being a Fountain of Life, yep, to Madison, Wisconsin. Reuniting with my mom after our displacement and things like that. She was a member of this church coming out of her recovery and things like that. And so this was where she brought me and my older brother to rejoin the family unit. At the time, I'm able to look back on it, because I'm much older now, but at the time, there was this young black man, right, with a lot of energy, very edgy, and I was just like, okay, he a pastor, because I was a Baptist kid in Chicago and he was definitely old. Okay. So there was no young pastors pastoring kids, and the youth ministry was unheard of, or things like that. And so I remember just coming here and it being a fun thing. Not feeling out of place or like I couldn't belong, like this was fresh and new and exciting. And I think I just felt ready for the ride, but I think I also felt ready for the change, coming from where I had come from, ready for the change in what I thought I saw in being here. There was just this light, so.
That's beautiful.
Those are some of my earlier one of my first impressions of just coming and encountering you.
That's beautiful. And Jacquesha Sugar is one of the folks who came to this church as a child, and you worked in it, served in it. As I mentioned, you still work really closely with me, particularly with my wife, all the way from Texas. You're back in town for your own personal business and things that you're doing. But it makes me very proud to see someone who was a teenager here in this organization. You were in Nehemiah's programming. Our program helped you get your first job.
Which I stayed connected to until I was about 25. So until I moved to Atlanta at 25 in 2005, I maintained employment at my very first job from 1995 until 2005. I remained on payroll.
That is wild. And you're entrepreneurial. This lady doesn't work for anybody but Jacquesha Hunt.
And Jacqueline Bernice's.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yes. I love that. So listen, let me let you ask your question, but I'm really glad that you're here. What do you want to ask me about leadership as I celebrate being the head of Nehemiah for 30 years and Fountain of Life for 35, 40 years? What do you want to know about my leadership journey?
I think what most intrigues me and what I'd like to, hear from you is how were you able even then, or how do you look at it now? Were you able to, be this multifaceted person even so long ago? Because how I see it is that you went from, you were the pastor, right? So there was
Right.
this certain level of respect that I had, just in the fact
Sure.
that, okay, this is my pastor. And then some pivotal moments that took place even during my time here, where you became more than just that, right? And one of my most fondest things that I'll preface that is, when I think about my first pregnancy, when I told you, and of course there was some shame with that, being in the church, and here you are, 18, pregnant, and I have to tell you, right? Because you're going to see it
Right.
eventually. And that conversation really shaped a different kind of relationship for you and I, at least from me.
Sure.
Right? Because it was in that moment that you let me know that I wasn't alone, right? And that I would go through this pregnancy because I didn't have my father, right? That you would take on that role as that shepherd. And so our relationship became even more dimensional, in that particular moment.
Definitely.
And so maybe that's part of the loyalty that I have to the organization. But my thing about leadership is that how were you able to, one, take me as a teen, move me as a young adult, and cover and shepherd in leadership, but not lose or feel like, how did I not make you feel like you had failed per se, right? In leadership, right? Because you're supposed to become like, how did I slip through the cracks? Or how did I end up in this situation under your leadership, right? How were you able
Great questions.
to accept that and accept me and still move forward and still lead and inspire and do the things that you've done?
Wow, that's a very complex, beautiful question. Yeah, I mean, so many things are going through my head. One, you could never make anyone feel like a failure, so that piece is easy. I really think that ministry is where I got to be whole. So I was always fun, but I was an outsider. I was the kid picked last in class. No one wanted to really be around me. Leleda and I were too white to be black, too black to be white. You think you better, you think you smarter, you got to have all that kind of stuff. So we grew up becoming really good friends because other people picked on us and didn't like us. And so Fountain of Life, Union Tabernacle at the time, gave me a chance to bring all of myself together. So I've always had leadership qualities, I think. As a kid, I would organize, kids in the neighborhood to do stuff. So I feel like I got to bring my humor, my intellect, my energy, my networking skills all together. But I also think that because I had felt so unseen my entire life, I knew how to see people who felt unseen. And even to this day, I try to focus on people when they're talking. I like quirky people. I like having those conversations with folks because I remember people just sort of looking through me or not responding to me. So I tried to find those folks. Now, in the midst of all of that, I felt that I had really good adults who did see me in church growing up. So I wanted to see our young people because a lot of the churches didn't have teens. They didn't have young people. Not only were you all were young and cool. So you had different language. You all liked to dance. And so we made room for dance inside the church and skits in our programming. And so I think the real program, Sugar, was really loving people, really just loving people, seeing them, because we became family. I mean, that's another thing that really happened. Like you talk about, like, hey, we're one family in this sorority, we're one family in this fraternity, we're one family in this church. We really became family, going to each other's, relatives' funeral. You design my father's obituary. I got a chance to be part of your grandfather's memorial service. I got to preach at his memorial service. We do all of these connections. Your younger brother's my fraternity brother. And so I think what happened is because, like in true Black family tradition, when the Black families were broken up during slavery, you had to make family with what you had. I feel like we became more family to each other than some of our real and extended families, because we saw each other all the time and we knew each other at our best and at our worst. But we also dreamed together, because these weren't people who just met up on Sundays. You all helped us create the youth program. You all helped us create the cotillion. I mean, the lady may have designed it, but y'all showed up and raised money for it. And so what you're asking is a perfect storm of what happens when you have a vision. It should give room for those who are participating in it to grow into their purpose as well. And even though I didn't quite know what I was doing, which is why this process of passing the mic is so important, so I can be asked these questions, so I can verbally process and think about it, I think my gift was to cast a vision of shared legacy. You helped me save that URL, but to cast a vision that our success is intertwined. And people really believe that. So I can count, I can wash dishes, I can bake cookies, I can do a catering business, I can design a program, I can write grants, I can choreograph dance, I can help men coming out of prison. And so all of these folks just said, this is what I can do. And they started doing it, and it worked. And people loved it. And so I think that's a piece that led me in that work. It's so funny. I'm just having flashbacks. I forgot about that conversation when you became pregnant. I forgot that you were that young, that you were 18. So I'm thinking through that. But I also know that that's a place where a lot of people lose their faith connection. They lose their faith community. They actually lose their family. And I thought, this is one of my kids. This is not going to happen. Because there are so many other things that's going on than just teenagers having sex. Like there's pain, there's abuse, there's acceptance. There's so much stuff that's going on that if you just point fingers and make people feel shame without even understanding what's motivating them, or maybe it's a place of being loved. Maybe having a baby is the first time of experiencing real love because you get to control it and give it. All of those things are at play, but I was determined that was not going to keep you from being a part of the family, but that we could all be a part of the family together. And that shouldn't be something that causes shame, because I needed you to have your energy to be the best mom you could be to this baby. So it was a real serious talk, but you were also very respectful. There's a feeling among people my age that young adults don't want having conversation with us. I think the mistake that people my generation make is that we say they don't want anybody saying anything to them. They don't want anybody telling them what to do. I don't know that anybody grown who has their own mind wants to be told what to do. But not wanting to be told what to do is not the same as not wanting to have a conversation. I think people want to have a conversation. They want to be listened to, Absolutely. But they don't want someone saying, this is what you need to do.
Right.
You need to go find that baby's daddy. You need to, whatever it might be. You need to go move down south. I think we just had a conversation that you were very mature and respectful. That baby now is 20? She's in college, and
she'll be 22 this year.
Shoot, 22 and grown and pursuing things that she's interested in, and it's just amazing. How could shame come around someone who brought so much to your life and so much to our family's life and so much to our community life? And so we were doing the right thing back then in having that discussion, because she is certainly a blessing to all of us.
And even the circumstances of her birth, right? And the support from that, right? Knowing
she was a preemie.
She was 1.5 pounds. And knowing and having that support and having the hope that she could live.
Because we've been through that too.
Because there was a connection there. One thing I will say also about your leadership that still holds true to this day is that you allow people to be themselves in certain spaces that are for them. You don't create barriers in leadership or in artistic direction or in anything. Your answer, for the most part, and I'll just paraphrase, is, okay, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see how it works. It either may or may not, right? But it was never no, we're not doing that. That's not going. It was never a no.
We've never done it that way before.
Right. It was never a no.
Wow.
And I think in being able to grow in a space like that, under that kind of leadership, I think has probably been my greatest blessing and curse. Because I can't stay focused, because I'm like, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this and I can do that.
At the same time.
At the same time. Good morning.
Hello. Yes.
And
So that's my fault.
Yeah. Actually, yes, because I don't believe in creating barriers, right? Rather than how can we get it done?
Yes.
Right. And even when you come with well, this is what I want to do, and I'd be like, okay, I figure out how to get it done, right? Or at least try very hard. So if I come back with a hard no, there's a relationship that has been created that you knew that I have already exhausted every resource to make this happen. And I come back with a firm conclusion that, hey, this is not it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And there's always been that respect, you know what I'm saying? And growing into that, you know what I'm saying? And so that's another thing that I can attest to your leadership, but it's like, how? I just always look at you and I be like, how are you this person, right? How are you someone who gets it? Out of all the leaders that I've encountered, how are you someone that gets it?
That's such a beautiful and humbling question, but I want to flip it on you. When a leader has people who believe in the vision and they want to support it and see themselves in it, they actually make the leader the leader. Because I can stand outside and say, this is what we're going to do and here's where we're going to go. But if people don't believe it, nothing happens. Right. For the anniversary, we found an old video. I think Alexandra was a toddler. So Lexi wasn't even born yet. So this is at least 27 years ago. And I have a megaphone. I said, we're going to build an auditorium. We're going to build schools. We're going to have classrooms. But everybody in that crowd said, psst, we see why you got picked last in gym class, because you ain't got coordination and you don't make sense. If no one leaned into it, I'm not really a leader. But because people said, we can do this. Oh, wow, Jinx, buy me a pop. Because people said that, you fast forward all these years and we're building a 45, 50,000, square foot, $40 million facility because of something a bunch of kids, and I was in my early 30s that we said. So the beauty, when you're asking how I become this, it's because you all believed and you all leaned in. And it's a reflection it's a reflection of leadership, but it's also people responding. Like before we did this show, you were talking to your baby and you were telling her, okay, hey, mom's away on business, but you got cheer rehearsal. Here's where your uniform is. And I could hear her say, okay, mom, you said I did your laundry. It's in your room. And she said, okay, thank you. Now, I was thinking, wow, that's really sweet that she's thanking you for doing laundry, because some people think that that's a mama's job. But you've also raised her in a way to be respectful. But because she's respectful, it makes it easier to do stuff for her. I think that's the mix between leadership. Hey, y'all, let's go take this hill. We take this hill. So then when other people in the team start having ideas too, well, let's try your idea. Let's try your idea. Let's try your idea, so that we can see who else is dreaming and thinking in here. But because you all got behind the vision, it made me envision even more, because I trusted that you all not only could make it happen, y'all would make it happen. Why support Black Like Me podcast? There are very few places where Black activists and innovators can listen to and hear someone so aptly and culturally appropriately voice their concerns and dreams and aspirations and fears and illnesses and cultural commonalities. Equally, there are so few places where concerned non-Black thinkers and feelers, readers and watchers, lovers of culture, stalwarts of racial justice and harmony can go to learn, lean in, and to be a quiet fly on the wall in Black spaces and experience deep personal transformation through listening to honest Black people's truth. Black Like Me podcast is that for so many people in this nation and around the world. Now, while your financial support beginning at as little as $2 a month will get you access to pre-released information, updates, conversations, insights, and exclusive events, your support also affords us the opportunity to expand the quality and reach of our excellent programming in thoughtful and authentic ways to more and more people. And more importantly, white people need to stop trying to get free shit from black people. All right, seriously, your financial support is a vote of confidence, and it's an enabler of vision and innovation. So why not click that link today and join the movement? I want to thank you in advance for your support and your partnership.
Okay, so then let me flip it back. How do you feel, or how does it make you feel for those that have left your leadership that didn't tie into the vision or couldn't foresee the vision? Like, how did that make you feel as a leader?
Ooh, that's a great question. Screw them is what I prayed. No, it was difficult. David was my assistant pastor. And David and I are probably going to need to throw a party this year because we've been friends for 50 years. I think we met in 73. I was his best man. He was my best man. His kids call me Uncle Alex. And even after all these years, we don't hang out all the time, but we're close. He's one of the few people I can call and talk to about my mama or my sister. If I just want to get a perspective, I can talk with him. But when he left to start his own work, I felt like a failure because I knew I had this vision that whatever was to become of Fountain of Life Ministries, it would be too large for me to handle alone, and we would need a team of pastors. Now, other people weren't doing teams of pastors back in those days, so I'm talking about stuff that didn't exist. Wasn't nobody doing cross-cultural stuff with a white worship leader and white singers and musicians and elders and nobody was doing that the way we were. So, but I felt like a real failure. Now, what's interesting is a few years later, after he left, he said, "Alex, if I knew how hard pastoring was, I would have left differently." And I laughed and said, good for you. But we had already had the discussion because he needed to grow and do his own thing. I had a vision, but didn't know that I was going to be developing other leaders. I didn't know that that was a chance to develop other people that were coming up. Your mom and Jerome and Coop and Tyler and Allie and, Roxanne and Jackie and other people that are around. I just felt like, okay, we've been friends. I've invested in you. Let's make this work. Same thing with my friend Joe, who's a successful pastor also. I'm friends with them now, but we have to talk through the difficulty of that departure because a part of leadership is understanding that at some point, people are going to move out your house, have their own families, their own dreams, their own responsibilities, and that is an example of your leadership and not something that's contrary to it. But at the time, because I was not mature enough in my leadership and I didn't understand that was the role of it, that you reproduce and then you let go, that I felt like a failure. I didn't wish them any harm, but it was harmful because I thought, what did I do wrong? Like, why wouldn't everybody want to stay here and help this thing grow? Now, this has grown, and I do need multiple staff to be able to do it. When you think about Nehemiah, the church, now the center, I was right in that vision, but I didn't have the right to determine who that was going to be, and I couldn't hold them back. So what I'm learning is that when people aren't a fit, I'd rather for them to follow that dream, to have that success, and both of them did, or make mistakes, so then no one can ever blame me for not supporting it. But I don't want to feel like I have the right to hold people back from what they're dreaming because it doesn't fit with what I'm dreaming. Right. As a visionary leader, I want to produce visionary leaders or to help to support visionary leaders. But at the time, in the day, it was very, very difficult. But the other aspect of our leadership is that my friend David left in 95. I think it was 95. And right afterwards, his brother died. I knew he was in no shape, David, to do that funeral. It didn't matter what our beef was or how I perceived it. I had to jump right in there and help my brother do that funeral. And then a few months later, my grandmother passed away, who was as much of a grandmother to him. There's been times I went to Chicago to visit my grandmother, and he answered the door in a robe. I'm like, what you doing in my grandmama's house? And so I've also learned that when you do leadership right, you can clash, but it doesn't change the relationship.
Right. That
a fight or conflict should not destroy a relationship if you've really built it well. Right. But it hurt because I confused leadership with wanting to be liked. And so if someone did something different or left, I've learned that it doesn't mean that I've done anything wrong, and it doesn't mean that they're lacking, but it could mean they're not getting what they need but it's not about being liked. I have to separate the two. And so I had to learn to do that the hard way.
Okay, so let's talk here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I left.
Yes, you did.
I did. I left, but I didn't leave because it was your leadership,
Right.
right? And I also fought for you guys to understand that just because I moved to a different state, I could very much still be effective and a part and still, you know what I mean, undergird our legacy, right?
Right,
This
right.
this
You
this
sure
thing of
did.
shared legacy, right?
Right.
Because like, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna do this?
And you did it. You've done it. You're doing it. You're here.
Yes, yes. And so when I think about, people that leave, all the time I just hear shared legacy, shared legacy, shared legacy. It's been like ingrained in me. And so and I try to, preach that to my daughters, but the easier part of it is that they can see it in action. Right? That
Wow.
even though we've left, they're very much still a part. They
Right.
get messages from you and cards from you and gifts from you and love from you and can talk to you about things even that I don't even know about.
Right.
And
I circle back and tell you
and
so you know. I circle
do.
back and tell you so you know.
Absolutely do. And there are things that I share with you that they don't, because even though you're still my pastor, right? And I still need to have a place in a safe space to be able to say,
Right,
hey,
right.
I'm doing this job alone, right? And so I
Right.
need some help in certain areas. And so it's like that kind of leadership, even when people leave, right? I also believe that you have a responsibility, or I'll say I felt like I had a responsibility to make sure that, that you understood that your leadership was important to me and that I didn't not want the leadership. However, I needed something for my legacy, right? There are things that you're dealing with today, right? This race relation, all these things like that I didn't want. There are places where I could take my children where they didn't have to be the minority. Right. And so I made a choice for them because they're alive now, and I could be here fighting the good fight, of these things and in these school systems and in these spaces, but my children are alive today. Right. And so I wanted them to grow up in spaces where their peers look like them, right? Where it wasn't automatic that because you're this little brown girl, you need this, or you can't, succeed in school, or you can't be great because you just a kid on the South Side. And so you need all these services and things like that. And I feel like that was the best situation for them to be in spaces where they could see other students and their peers on the honor roll, where they could see, Black people in leadership leading them,
Or pitching on a varsity softball team
every year.
like your daughter was, the winning strikeout. Like, because if a Black girl were a pitcher on a Madison school team, it would be an anomaly. Like, wait, she
can pitch.
She can pitch. She can pitch. Like,
Yeah,
because a lot of Black girls aren't going out for sports, because a lot of Black girls aren't out for sports.
Right.
When you made that decision to say, but my girls need to see something different, I couldn't argue with that, because that makes, and I see how they are flourishing. They're in cheer and stuff where there are other Black girls. I was at a Bucks game. You could almost count the Black people in the stadium. You go to a Brewers game. Yes, it's really hard to go to healthy, positive places and see the kind of role models that you want to see for your kids.
Yeah.
And I never felt like you were leaving the. Let me say, I mean, you're reminding me as you ask this question, as you're making your comments, that I did have this sense that if you're around, we could nurture you, we could support you, we can help you grow. Texas is so far away. Churches, have a tendency to be so large. Will you be lost? But you stay connected. COVID happened a few years after that, so we're talking on Zoom anyway. You commute back, or you're doing things. You created our church app, not even in the same state from where you were. We watched your girls flourish in their work and in school. But it also proved to me that once, as a leader, once I and my team worked to instill a sense of hope and drive and integrity and purpose, you're an extension of my leadership and work there. And so you're thriving where you are. Of course, y'all have winters now in a way I don't remember Dallas having, but y'all know y'all have crazy summers anyway. But just how you know how to look for a good place for your family to worship, or how you are able to make good choices, how you have made great choices as a mom that would never put your daughters in harm's way. All of those things are proof that you don't have to live in the 608 in our area code in order to be a part of our leadership. So you've helped to remind me that Fountain of Life is not just a place that is gathered on Sundays, but it's scattered throughout this whole country where people are still living out those ideals. And when Jacquesha says shared legacy, it's a concept that she and others helped me shape. And what we realize is that none of us has to stand alone, but that we have this compounded aggregate success because we are the result of our ancestors' dreams, and it's all flowing to us at the same time. And we're having this fantastic experience of bringing those talents and dreams and abilities together, not just in the faith space, but in our lives. So we support each other in our endeavors. And so shared legacy just reminds us that we are in a Western, ruggedly individualized world. We're holding to a worldview, probably more of an Afrocentric worldview, that we are connected and tied together. And it's compounded by everybody succeeding. So we need everybody to be rowing and everybody to win. And that's what we mean by a shared legacy. Yes, it's some great questions. Do you have any others on there?
I do. Like I said before, you have never been one to stunt someone's growth or creativity, right? You've always been willing to give things a try. Right. And so one of my questions was around that, right? I struggle with a lot of uncertainties, right? Because I'm a creative being, right? I love to create things. I love to see where things will go or to try new things, right? I don't like barriers or ceilings being placed on anything, right? Like in any area of creativity. And so my question to you is that what advice would you give, someone like me now who wants to just get free or to focus, right?
Right.
In a particular area without knowing, the outcomes. Like, I don't know where this will go, but I want to go deeper into this maybe, but maybe I don't, because then I have to let this go. Like, how do you now maybe, or how would you advise me in this area of uncertainty, or in areas of uncertainty, to kind of focus?
Sure. Well, you know how to be creative in any setting because that I didn't teach you that. You brought that to the table. I created, I think, a playing field and maybe removed some of the barriers or rules to that. But you brought who you were to that space. So know that when you want to try something different, you have that capabilities. What you don't have maybe are the imposed parameters and sanctions. And so what you might say,
rules.
yes. And so what you might, but as I get older as a visionary, what I realize is some of the rule keepers or rule makers are the people who help me to produce at a better level, get stuff in on time, get grants. And so as I get older, I realize, okay, creativity. I love creativity. I can dream. I can see the future. I know what can be. But all of those ideas without producing them makes you just a bag of wind. And we know people that are thinking they're leaders and talking, but they haven't produced anything. You can't say, if we're talking about just in a biological sense, if you have not adopted, loved, fostered, or given birth to a child, you can't keep walking around saying, I'm a parent, and you don't even know a child, and you're acting like one. Sure. The proof of it is you have produced or adopted or fostered. You've done something to care and nurture a child. That's the proof of it. We have a lot of people calling themselves leaders, and they have only created chaos. They have not developed leaders. And so what I would say to you is lean into people who love your vision, who love you and love your vision, or understand you and love your vision, whose critique and structures can be trusted. So they're never trying to control you to go another way. They're just saying, I'm just telling you 5 seconds and it's going to be 5 o'clock, or I need to tell you it's 80 degrees, or that's going to burn if you keep cooking it at 375. Get people who can help you with parameters and rules, but you don't have to question what their ulterior motives are. They're only saying it because they're trying to get you to get in that direction. Like, I'm only telling you the light's green because you're trying to go that direction. I'm not trying to tell you how to drive. I'm just saying the light's green. You're still sitting here. So find people who can help to put some of those structures together that will propel your vision. Even as you gave me, you said I've given you space for people to be creative. I had administrative people who could say, but you said something different last week. So they didn't tell me you can't do this and you have to do that. They're just like, you said you're going to do two things and they both can't exist at the same time. I was able to weigh the options and say, all right, I'm not going to do the one on the left. This one's more urgent. We're going to do this. So it helped to inform my decisions. So see folks who help you with those rules or strategies or platforms, see them as people who help to clarify your options. Not tell you what the options are. Because if you tell me not to do this, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
But help me to understand or create a platform or space where I can weigh my options. Then I can take an intelligent approach. That's what I would say to someone like you. And the other thing is, as much as visionaries dream a whole lot of stuff, as I get older, I'm almost 60, I cannot do everything that's in my head. But I will tell you this. There's stuff that I'm doing today that was in my head when I was Jacquesha's age.
Okay.
But it stayed there, it didn't go away. But I had to do this, and that first to give me the skills to get here. Like, even if I dream of being a great softball player, I can't just start on third. Like, I got to start at home. I got to get to first. I got to beat, I got to do all those things. I got to tag up and run. I think a lot of people just want to jump at third base because they're smart or they're talented, they're gifted. But I realize that being consistent and delivering on things actually gives me confidence, and it gives others around me confidence. Okay, he said he's going to do this. Wow, it happened. Okay, then let's trust him in this. Let's trust him. I'm getting a whole lot less feedback on building a $40 million cultural center than I did on raising $1.5 million to start the Justified Anger Initiative. Well, why is that your role, and can you do it? And is that your place? And is that Nehemiah's structure? But, we did it. We wrote our Madison plan. We had these listening groups. We started the Justified Anger Black History for a New Day class. We started Emerging Black Leaders program. We got a $1 million grant to help reduce microaggressions that are shortening Black lives. We've done this for 10 years. When I then came to the community and said, we need to raise $40 million, in 10 months, we raised $23 million. They said, oh, okay. But if I hadn't done those other things where I struggled, they would have been like, oh, who does he think he is? For the effort, for the project, for the leadership, this has never been done in Madison's history. It's never been done in Wisconsin history. But less resistance over a $36 million, $40 million project than over a $1.5 million raise in the same community 10 years ago.
Right.
So I would say go for what gives you traction. Go for what allows you to shine. And understanding that dreaming is great and it's a luxury. But producing is a necessity. For you and for others. I believe in myself because of what I've seen myself, what I've seen myself produce in conjunction with others who've helped me. I've never produced anything by myself, but thoughts and doubts, and maybe a little confusion. But with people around me, they could push me so that it begins to gain momentum. Everybody just wants to come out the gates and just be all of that right now. But I've been at this for 40 years. So what I would say is, you know more about leadership because of the people you've been around at your age than I did when I was your age. Right. Because you still got people like me and others around you. So you've got a perfect setup for lifelong success if you don't get in your own way by trying to do everything and everything now. Right. That's a tough, tough lesson, because if it's in my head, I think it's supposed to be. And it's supposed to be now. This is probably a little thing I'm going to do a snippet about at some point. But vision does not come with an expiration date on the bottom of it. So when I see stuff, I don't know if it's going to happen today, in 3 hours, in 3 days, weeks, months, years. I have no idea. But my inclination is, well, if I see it today, it's supposed to happen tomorrow. While you're looking, Jacquesha, the curse of leadership is that it's often not what we think it is. We think it's about us and a platform. But as I'm sitting here listening to you talk about things that were so real at 15 that I didn't even know were part of your reality. I mean, you were grown when I found those things out. That even in the workplace, in arts, no matter where it is, leadership is really about helping people become all they can be. And when we get away from that, it's destructive. But when we do it, it's so life-giving. And so I can't tell you how healing and helpful it is to hear you talk about what my leadership or this ministry means, because you didn't talk about a single song, you didn't talk about a single sermon, you didn't talk about a sacerdotal act. You talked about relationships being seen and not being written off. And wow, if that doesn't sum up what every leader should want their leadership to be about, I don't know. I don't know what is.
It was not that I had lost that baby, right? So there was another shift. So that pregnancy didn't go to term, and then turned around and ended up pregnant with the one that still didn't go to term again, but there was a chance for life, right? And so those things were still adamant. So it wasn't just that one experience, it was the covering of the whole thing. And I think that from those experiences, and like I said, that's why they were pivotal.
Sure.
Right? Because now, one, I had made the mistake, and I told you, but then I didn't even have a baby to produce from it after the fact. So I could have just kept my secret, right? And lost in peace, and saved myself the shame per se, right? Because even in knowing that, okay, you may have still, and that's what mattered, right? Because there were people who didn't approve of or whatever, but you did. Not necessarily approve of,
Sure.
but you didn't shun.
Right.
Right. So going back and then turning around and being pregnant again, and now having to deal with this preterm pregnancy with I don't know what to do. But I was there and I was committed. I was at St. Mary's every day pumping and watching the healthiest thing in the NICU. All she had to do was get big.
And in that space, I needed to step out of pastoring, because true shepherding, leadership in the faith community is broader than that. And I just need to say to our listeners who have struggled with communities of faith or with faith or organized religion, I get it for all of the bad reasons, but I'm hoping you lean in for all of the good reasons. In the Black community, the church was our social service agency. It was our saving grace. It was who put your families back together. It was our foster care service. It's where you went to get food. It's where you went to get help. It's where you got your mind back together. It's where old women told you how to get your bodies healed after losing a baby or having a baby, or how to raise children when the husband wasn't there. It was really more than just a place where dogma was produced. It was central to our communities. And so that means that the role of the leader is social worker and triage, case manager and father and uncle and mentor. And I found out how to move in those roles. And I felt in that situation, you didn't need me to sit up with a collar on and tell you what scripture said about stuff. And I knew that your father wasn't in your life. And at that point, even though you were talking to me, you were too young to know you go and talk to your pastor about these kinds of things. There was something else that you were reaching for. And I knew what it was like to go through life and not have a father figure. But I also knew what it was like to have that void of not having children. Not only the loss of children, but not having children, not being a father. So it was an opportunity to really to step up and to be that for someone for unselfish reasons, and knowing that, okay, this is a commitment for a long time. You can't just say this kind of stuff and not mean it. But leadership is about seeing a need and helping to be a part of that solution and being committed. And And those aren't conversations I've had with a lot of people. Like it's not like that's what I go and sit down with someone and, and say. I thought you could hear it. I thought you would take it to heart. And I also knew that your place in the world and in the faith community and in the universe was so important that I couldn't sit back and let your being pregnant somehow tie into a sense of unworthiness or dirtiness because of experiences as a child. I couldn't sit there and let you make that connection. So I had to find a way to disrupt that, to understand your value and the baby's value and that whole process. And so it's in moments like that that your leadership goes to another level. It's in moments like that you don't know what you're made of. And to be quite honest, I'm really humbled, but some of those conversations are coming back to mind because it seemed like that was so long ago. But it's easy to forget how just being relevant and present can mean so much to people. And I would say, even as we wrap up, that has really been the hallmark of what I've wanted my leadership to have or represent, a sense of just being present and relevant. And to me, that doesn't mean hip. It means what someone needs. So if y'all could dance, I wanted a dance troupe. If y'all were comedic, we made room so that Daniel Coffey could do comedy. But if people really needed mentoring and fathering, relevance is stepping up to that too. So it's not about wearing jeans in the pulpit when you preach. It's really about making faith and love and community and hope real. And that's an aspect of my leadership that many people don't talk about. I'm really glad that you focused mainly on my faith community leadership. And it wasn't about my sermons or my theology. It was about relationships, because I'm known for a lot of things in this community. But where I was trained to see people, care for people, receive vision, and develop the community that could affirm that vision, that happened in the faith community. And so if anyone loves and respects me, they have to love and respect the faith tradition that has produced me. Even if they don't agree with it, they have to understand this is not what I got from the university or Bakke Graduate University or from reading a book. This came because you all and your mother and your grandfather and people said, that young man's got something to say. That young man's a leader. And you all treated me with respect, as if to say we got your back. Because there's a lot of people who are saying a lot of things, but people won't show up. And when I did things and said things, you all showed up. And in the community, y'all made it clear like we were part of a gang or something. They were like, man, your Found a Light people are everywhere. They'd be like, oh, I'm with Found a Light. Like, no matter where they're working, they'd be like, man, your people are everywhere. They're the city poet laureate. They wrote the state's 150th birthday. They're over here doing stuff at the Boys and Girls Club. They're doing stuff at the Urban League. And I fully love that. Jacquesha, it has been a gift to have you here. I'm so glad that this worked out. And actually, in one of our creative teams, it was Jacquesha who said, you should have some young people interview you, not just older people. So because of you, you're here. And Alexandra and Lexi have agreed to be a part of the interview team. So just know that being part of the creative team, we are listening. And so, folks, didn't I tell you, folks? You just thought it was going to be all funny because we started out talking about white girls and the devil being a lie. And then we went really, really deep at the heart of community. And let me just say something else, too. The young people in our congregation brought a lot of rawness. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just a lot of honesty about who and where they were. But what I really love about our community of faith is that you and I could have a relationship without anyone ever wondering, is there attraction? Is there some type of sexual connection? Is there, like, people who hear us talk and connect and interact know that that's never been a part of it. And I think for older leaders, it's a different world now. So you just have to be more guarded. But in our world, we create a space where moms and single moms felt safe with their sons and daughters around men in our church. And that's a gift.
It is.
That is and we weren't afraid, and your mom never jumped into the relationship or anything. like that. I would give kids my phone number and say, don't give it to your parents. Because I said, this is what I said. I would say it because I know. I wouldn't advise that to young pastors now. But what I would say was, these parents will get mad and leave our church and they'll be over at Mount Zion next Sunday. These kids are going to be around forever. I said that I said, the kids are loyal. Kids are loyal. And so I just have really appreciated.
You got Pastor G number? And don't.
I love it. Again, and I never told them to lie to their parents. I just said, don't give it to your parents. Because if I want them to have it, they could have it. My number is the 1-800-THE-OFFICE. But I knew kids would call me if they needed to. And that was just really, really important. So I just want to state that too, that in this crazy world, adults and children can have very healthy and meaningful relationships that last for decades when there's true love and integrity and authenticity. And I think that's an important part of leadership that I think people are afraid to move into because we just live in such a crazy world that's just looking to litigate and all this kind of stuff. So, folks, you've got a lot to really think about, including areas of strength in the Black community that you weren't quite aware of, or even places where you've been strengthened and believed in and you didn't pause to reflect on how important that is. With every episode, y'all know what I need you to do. I need you to lean in. I need you to learn. I need you to reflect. I need you to share this because someone needs to hear this episode, post, give us a review on any of the applications or platforms where you download this. And become a patron supporter. Click that link and become a supporter so that we can continue to bring great programming to you and to the world. So thank you for being a part of the Black Like Me podcast family. Thank you for all your support. Most importantly, thank you for listening, for being diligent in listening. And I want you to have a great day.
Black like me. Black like me.
Wow, I really enjoyed today's conversation, and I know that you did too. With each episode, I challenge my listeners to do a number of things: to lean in, to learn, to reflect, to share, to donate, but more importantly, to act on what has inspired you in today's episode. The benefit of being around for 8 seasons is that people constantly stop me and tell me how much they love the show, and they even give me ideas and suggestions about Black icebreakers. But I couldn't have pulled this off alone. So let me take a moment so that I can acknowledge and thank my crew. Engineers and producers Jeremy and Eli. Also a member of my creative team is Jacquesha. The music was produced by Corey Saffold, and Marcus Fleming is on vocals. And of course, you, our Patreon supporters, and all of our listeners, thank you. To everyone who listens to this podcast and you decide to share it with someone who needs it, to everyone who listens and then reposts it on your own social media accounts, to everyone who hears something that moves them to act differently, act better, and to everyone who leans in to understand Black life more honestly, thank you.
Black like me.